Hello, my dear watchers, thinkers, and wanderers, time travelers. Welcome back to ChronoRoyals. This is Vespera. Now, if you've been with me for a while, you know this space isn't just commentary. It's reflection, it's memory, it's me, offering you a piece of my voice, a piece of my story, and sometimes, yes, a question that lingers long after the video ends. So, here's today's question. What does it mean to belong to a kingdom, even when the kingdom no longer exists? What does it mean to defend a crown when the rest of the world calls it old-fashioned, corrupt, outdated, and even dangerous? And what does it mean when a king opens a door, extends a hand, and suddenly he is no longer a monarch in the eyes of many, but a target? I've been watching what's unfolded lately, the backlash, the rage, the headlines, all over a simple act of ceremony. A king attending the opening of an Islamic Studies Center at Oxford. Now, I've seen people shout in comment sections, "Not my king! He's abandoned us. He's committing treason live on the world global stage. This is Sharia invasion. Oh, King Charles is converting to Islam. Oh, this is the end of England." And honestly, I need us to slow down a little bit. Not just because the noise is extremely exhausting, but because underneath all that noise, there's something much deeper going on. Something old, something sacred, something broken, something personal. So, in this video, we're not going to scream back, right? We're going to reflect. We're going to trace lines through faith, monarchy, memory, and fear. We're going to dissect that speech King Charles gave. Not through panic, but through perspective. And through it all, I'm going to share my story, not as a political figure, not as a royalist mouthpiece, but as someone who still carries the dust of a fallen kingdom in her memory, in her dreams, in her lungs, and still believes that there is beauty in a crown. Not just because it glitters, though. Don't get that wrong. Don't get that twisted. But because it anchors. It defines you. So, dear friend, settle in, breathe, and let's begin with what actually happened at Oxford. All right, let's start with the facts, because clarity matters more than ever. Clarity is the one thing that matters the most, to be honest with you. King Charles was invited to attend the opening of a new building for the Center for Islamic Studies at Oxford. This center has existed since 1985, so pretty much ever since I was a toddler. That's nearly 4 decades. That is 4 decades, actually. And it's not a new invention, not a stealth institution, not a secret Sharia court. It's a place of academic dialogue, research, faith studies, multicultural scholarships. He gave a speech, polite, thoughtful, but above all, it was ceremonial. No laws were changed, no declarations of Islamic dominance, no pledges of allegiance to any ideology whatsoever. Okay? But that did not stop the outrage, did it? Comment sections lit up with cries of betrayal. Sharia law is coming. Britain's lost. That's not my king. No. Strange thing is, most of those shouting, a lot of them, never even listened to the speech. I'm willing to bet you that much. Never even listened through the entire speech point by point and tried to understand the message that was carried within that speech. All they want is their headlines and their clicks and all that. But the truth in itself, that is never, ever the center of attention. They just saw the word Islam and assumed the apocalypse was upon us. You know? So, what did I do? I did listen. I listened to every word. Not once, not twice, 3 times. And I'm going to share with you what I heard, what I understood, what I felt, and what I'm understanding in terms of general point of views, really. A king speaking about the importance of mutual understanding is what I got. A king referencing the shared heritage of the Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. A king highlighting Britain's long-standing diversity, its communities of faith, and the values of preserving places where people can study and grow and learn and understand. He spoke like a monarch who sees his nation as a garden of many roots, not a fortress of one flower. And no, that does not mean he replaced the Church of England either. That does not mean he's pushing for theocratic rules. That does not mean he's betrayed his people. What it means is that he showed up as a king to all his subjects. And some people just can't handle that. All right, so let's go beyond the headlines. Let's hit pause for a second on all the noises and the chaos, and let's go beyond the headlines and actually read the king's words ourselves, you and I together. We're going to unwrap, dissect, and reflect on everything. Because if we're going to accuse a sovereign of treason, we better have receipts, right? So, not just rage, but receipts and common sense. So, basically, here's what King Charles said. He said, the establishment of the Oxford Center for Islamic Studies some 35 years ago represented a bold, far-sighted, and benevolent commitment to scholarly engagement and collaboration. It has grown steadily in influence and reputation over the decades and has contributed immeasurably to our understanding of Islam and the Muslim world. So basically, he opened by acknowledging the center's long history, 35 years, not something new, not something hidden, something smuggled in under the radar. This is an infiltration. It's institution, it's academic, public, respected. Then he also says, and I quote, at a time when so much is said and written about the Islamic world, much of it at best being uninformed and at worst misleading, the work of this center has never been more important. Where's the lie? We live in an age where most people's understanding of Islam comes from viral memes, outrage, and political fear-mongering. He's not elevating Islam here. He's saying, get educated, people. Stop operating on ignorance. Okay? Then I quote again, the Oxford Center for Islamic Studies has not only promoted a far greater understanding of Islam in its many facets, but he has also encouraged new generations of students and scholars, both Muslim and non-Muslim alike. Both Muslim and non-Muslim. That's what people conveniently leave out. This is not indoctrination. This is inclusion. This is about study, about inquiry, about truth-seeking, something our universities used to value before they became battlegrounds for politics. Then I quote again, "It has always seemed to me that there is no better way of promoting greater understanding between different traditions than by studying and learning from each other." Reflect on this for a second. I'm going to read it again. "It has always seemed to me that there is no better way of promoting greater understanding between different traditions than by studying and learning from each other." Do you know how many of my people were exiled because nobody wanted to learn about us? How many temples burned because someone couldn't be bothered to ask why we worship things the way we do? Do you know how much healing could have happened if someone had simply said, "Tell me who you are," instead of "convert, assimilate, or vanish"? You know? Then I quote again, "In times such as these, when the world is in such profound turmoil, I believe more than ever that there is wisdom in the humility and compassion of the great religions and in our need for one another." This is not a sermon. That's a plea. A monarch calling for humility, for compassion, for unity. Not compliance, not submission, but coexistence. Wow. Then I quote again, "I find it encouraging and heartening to see how this magnificent building reflects both the Islamic and Oxford architectural traditions. It is a remarkable example of how by respecting cultural identities, we can create something inclusive and inspiring." This building doesn't erase Britishness, if you ask me. It reflects it by allowing another voice to stand within its walls. That's called sovereignty. It means the crown is strong enough to hold multiple truths. It does not crumble just because another tradition is given space to breathe. And then there's this final quote. "The more we learn from one another, the more we can understand each other. And the more we can understand, the more we can trust. The more we trust, the more we can live in harmony." Bam. That is what a king says when he believes his people are capable of rising above fear. Not everyone will. Some are too addicted to outrage to hear anything clearly, but the king still speaks because of his duty, of his conviction, not to reflect his people's loudest fears, but to call them to their better selves. So I ask you, where in this speech did the king break his constitutional oath? Where did he endorse one religion over another? Where is the treason? Where is the betrayal? You cannot call a monarch weak just because he chooses grace over aggression. You cannot demand he represent a divided Britain while punishing him for addressing its fullness. I've heard leaders speak with violence. I've heard kings call for war. But here, I heard a monarch call for wisdom. And in my book, in my storybook, in my dictionary, that's leadership. So now that we've gone pretty much line by line through that speech, let's ask this one question. Why are people so terrified? Because nothing King Charles said was treasonous. Nothing undermined the Church of England. Nothing called for a shift in power or policy. And yet, the fear was instant, palpable, loud. People weren't reacting to the speech, if I was going to be truly honest with you. They were reacting to the symbolism of it. The sight of a king, their king, standing in an Islamic academic center, speaking with warmth, dignity, and familiarity. For some, that alone felt like betrayal. Why do you stand next to them and not next to us? Why must you also attend their events? Why not just ours? Why? Because the word Islam in the Western subconscious has been tied to invasion, to terror, to subjugation, but rarely to scholarship, reflection, research, neighborly existence. No. Instead of hearing the word education, they heard indoctrination. Instead of hearing engagement, they imagined submission. That's how people understand these things. The thing is, if and when you look past the headlines, when you breathe through the noise, you begin to see something else. That this fear is not really about Islam at all. It's about fragility. It's about how some people can't fathom the idea of their culture sharing space without feeling like they're losing it entirely. And I'm going to explain that to you. And precisely, that's where my story comes in. And I know I've been hinting at my story, my people, and this and that, and you're probably thinking, well, all right, what's your story? You ready for it? All right, so this is the favorite part. No, I'm just kidding. No, this is my story, because you need to understand my point of view, my stance, and why I see things the way I do. And I just want to present this side of the world, of my world, to you, so you can also reflect on it, because our lives are basically just by pure accidents of birth. We didn't choose any of this, and yet here we are in this world. And, you know, there's nothing we can really do about our existence in terms of where we were born or what kind of person we were born to be or whatnot, you know. Whether we were born to be of the Western culture, the Eastern culture, the Middle Eastern culture, we had no say over the accident of birth. So this is my little story, and I hope that I could shed a little bit of, I don't know, some light, some perspective with you. You see, I am of Asian descent, but not of one nation. My ancestors were part of a kingdom that stood proudly between the East and the West kingdoms of our land. We were not just actually a land, but a soul, a rhythm, a sacred space between empires, bridging philosophies, ideas, and spiritual codes. Our kingdom existed long, long ago, way before your kingdom had maps, your land were drawn with territories. Our kingdom existed so many centuries, millennials ago. And like all things too beautiful for power to tolerate, we were targeted. The Eastern Kingdom wanted more dominance. The Western Kingdom wanted territory. And both sides, equally hungry for control, decided to erase the Middle Kingdom. They decided to wage war against the Middle Kingdom so that each side of their kingdom could attain more land, more power. Our king ruled with spiritual balance, not tyranny. He didn't demand submission. He mediated between forces. He meditated. He was not just a warrior king. He was a peacekeeper. And in that way, when I heard King Charles speak of bridges between traditions, I heard something ancient, something sacred, something I hadn't heard in a long time. A monarch speaking not for dominance, but for wisdom. So, anyhow, our king fell, and within our name, our language, our borders. And ever since, my people have wandered. We've scattered north, south, east, west. Some assimilated to the newly formed kingdoms built on the ruins of ours. Some surrendered, but many of us, many of my ancestors, we carried the silence. We are the immigrants whose tongues are half buried in forgotten dialects. We are the families who never go back because there is no place to go back to. We wear our traditions and cultures in whispers. We carry kingdoms, our kingdom, in our bones, in our spirit. So when I see a king acknowledge another tradition, when I see him walk into a space that was never built for conquest but for conversation, I do not see betrayal. I see possibility. I see dignity. I see what my ancestors were denied. And that's what so many of these outraged voices don't understand. Not everyone gets to have a king, a monarch, a sovereign. Not everyone gets to keep their crown. Not everyone gets to see their culture survive alongside others for generations and generations and centuries and across millennia. So when you scream, or when I see people scream, "Not my king," abolish the monarchy, remove King Charles, this and that, some of us would give anything to have one. The thing is, a lot of people shouting tolerance only mean it when they're the ones being tolerated. Have you noticed that? They love freedom of speech until someone speaks a language they don't understand. They love diversity until it looks different in their neighborhood. They say all cultures matters, all life matters, until those cultures want to share a sacred space. And so when the king, the symbol of Britain, steps into a place that doesn't match their reflection, they call it betrayal. But monarchy is not about mirrors. It's about being and seeing yourself in every gesture, every decision, every moment of the crown. It's about the continuity of a nation. A king or a queen does not exist to echo the mood of the crowd or the rant of the day. They exist to hold the center, to stand still while the rest of us change, while the rest of us come and go, and will continue to come and go. It is to be ceremonial, yes, but also spiritual, symbolic, enduring. They're not politicians. They are anchors, as I've always said. And in times of divisions such as these we live in today's society, that kind of stillness becomes a lighthouse or a target. So, when our kingdom fell, there was no ceremony, no coronation, no farewell, nothing, just silence, tears of sorrow. And one morning, our flag was taken down and another replaced it. Our temples desecrated, our names mispronounced, our gods called foreign. And we, the daughters and sons of that realm, the descendants of that realm, became guests in countries that never asked for us. We became illegal immigrants across the centuries in various lands. That's why I look at the monarchy differently than some of you do. To you, it may be an institution to tear down. It may just be an institution to question, to mock, to ridicule, to praise. But to me, it's a memory of something sacred, of structure, of reverence, of home, of belonging. So no, I'm not going to join the chorus screaming, "Not my king, King Charles should step down, what a stupid king, and if only his mother was here to see him, how disappointed she'd be in him." No, I'm not going to join that boat. No. And that's because I know what it's like not to have one at all. I don't say that to silence you, don't get me wrong. I say it to remind you. If your king cannot attend a ceremony of another faith without you questioning his soul, then maybe it's not the king who's lost. Maybe it's the people. I still remember stories my father heard from his grandfather, who heard from his grandfather, and through generations before, passed down like lullabies, that there was once a royal court and a king would walk barefoot on sacred ground, listening to scholars from every part of the kingdoms, from near and far kingdoms, even those who disagreed with him. He wasn't afraid of different voices because he knew who he was. And sometimes when I look at it and I reflect on things, I see that same quiet confidence in King Charles. No panic, no reaction, just presence, just inclusion, just grace, So ask yourself, where exactly is the oh my gosh, he's committing treason? What sacred oath did he break by showing up to inaugurate this new wing at Oxford? Is it treason to show grace? Is it betrayal to acknowledge others? Or have we simply forgotten what leadership is supposed to feel like in a world obsessed with picking sides and division? You see, when people speak of monarchy with bitterness, when they roll their eyes at crowns, thrones, and rituals, I don't get angry. I just feel a kind of ache. Right there, a little pinchy ache right there in my heart. Because I come from people who've lost theirs. And when I say that, I don't mean we simply lost a ruler. We lost an entire rhythm of life. The temples, the language, the spiritual codes, the songs only sung during certain moons, the customs that were woven into our clothing, into our prayers, into our breath. Gone, erased, written over. They've been written over by history books we didn't even author, or co-author, as a matter of fact. So when I see a royal ceremony, when I hear a national anthem, or watch a king walk into a sacred hall, I don't see oppression. I see what my people, no longer have. I see people who still get to gather under something that holds their history, even if they don't always agree with it. And that's what monarchy is to me. It's not dominance. It's not ego. It's the spiritual spine of a people. It's what defines a people. Something that says you came from somewhere, you belong to something, and someone still carries that torch for you. Someone still represents you. Someone's still here to protect you, to define you spiritually, like to anchor you, so you don't become wanderers of time and nomads like us. Because when our kingdom fell, we became nomads, wanderers. We became orphans of the world. Some fled with scrolls wrapped in their shawls. Some clung to heirlooms that meant nothing to the outside world but everything to them. Some clung onto old chants and lullabies and passed them down through generations and generations, And some, like my ancestors, my great-grandfather, my grandfather, my fathers, they just carried the stories in their memory. And I once remember asking my father once, I asked him, where is our kingdom? And I remember him smiling, not with a happy smile, but with a half hollow, half hopeful one. He said, it's right here. And he placed his hand over my chest. Because they can't take what lives in your remembering, in your heart. And that's where your kingdom is. So you see, I don't defend monarchy because it's flawless. On the contrary, I defend it because I know what comes after it's gone. I defend it because I know what it means not to have one. Not its liberation, but its silence. You trade unity for politics. You trade ritual for bureaucracy. You trade story for slogan, for virals. And guess what? The spirit breaks. That's why this backlash toward King Charles doesn't move me the way it moves others. Because I'm not looking at the optics. I'm looking at the essence. Here's a king walking into a space that many have feared or misunderstood. Not to surrender, not to convert, but to honor, to witness, to bridge, to be the bridge and the gap between both worlds. That's what monarchs do. And if you think monarchy is so fragile it cannot withstand that, then maybe you've already forgotten what it's technically stands for. Monarchy to me is a container for identity, for memory, for spirit. And in a time where everything is digital, temporary, and disposable, a one-time show, one hit, one wonder, there is something profoundly human about having a monarch who remembers, even when the people forget. Okay, so now before I wrap up, I just have a few more thoughts that I'd like to express. I'd like to speak now directly to the Western world. To those born into privilege they did not earn, and blind to the history they inherited. You see, all your civilization has done is conquer. Land after land, flag after flag, territory after territory. And you've done it all in the name of order, of freedom, of progress. Okay? But where has it led you? Ask yourself that question. You conquered the Americas. You took vast kingdoms of land that weren't yours to begin with, yet you claim you discovered it, and you turned the original people into a distant memory. The native peoples of this land, now confined to the margins, living in reservations that, if we're brutally honest, are just modern day concentration camps with some liberties. You did not just take their land, you buried their legacy. You ravaged their land. You buried their history under highways and suburbia and shopping malls and all that. And then you detach yourself from the crown. You said, okay, we're done with the crown. All right. You got your independence. You said you did not need a monarch anymore. You chose presidents instead, one after another. Administration after administration, party after party. And look at where it's gotten you. In this 21st century, with all your wealth, all your knowledge, all your armies, your system, you now stand on the edge of another war. Maybe and perhaps the most destructive of all, the last one. Okay? World War III is no longer just the echoes of some fiction. And still, people are more concerned about retweets, outrage baits, and fake royal commentary. They think history is something you watch, not something you live. But I'm here to remind you, history always returns. History repeats itself. And when it does, it comes with consequences. You want to talk about survival? My people have known only wars. War is the backdrop of our lullabies, the shadow of our childhoods. We don't fear it, we endure it. We live through them. We adapt because of them. You know, during the Vietnam War, they came to us, the pale men, the Americans. They said to our people, if you fight alongside us, we'll protect you. Look, you have no land. You're nomads. Nobody wants you. But help us win this war, fight for us and with us, and we'll make sure we'll bring you to safety. And our people said, well, what if you lose the war? Then we'll be branded as rebels. And the pale men said, no, don't you worry. We've got you. We'll take you back to our homeland. We'll give you a new land. You can be free there. So what did we do? We fought. We bled. We fought for the American flag. We fought for peace, for freedom. Knowing even if the war was lost, we would become rebels, traitors, and with no place to go. We already had nowhere to live to begin with. We were living on the highest of mountaintops of our host countries. But the Americans promised, if we lose, you come with us. We'll take care of you. And we believed them because we had no better option, because we had no option. So when the war fell apart in 1975 and America lost or pretty much retreated, when communism took over in the southeastern region of Asia, my people ran, panicked. We didn't run towards opportunity. We ran towards the last helicopters, the last airplanes. We climbed into airplanes with no luggage, just babies and grief and hope and memories of everything we've known so far about our life. We were now going and hopping onto planes and flying to the unknown. Not all of us made it though. Only those who could grab a seat in those final moments of chaos. But from that war, we scattered once again. Some went to America, some went to France, some to Australia, Argentina, Canada, and other places around the world. We are everywhere. My people are scattered everywhere, near and far. We are your neighbors, but you wouldn't know. Why? Because we don't walk around announcing our pain, or we don't cry about our pain. We just carry it quietly, faithfully, with dignity. And so now I say this, not to insult you, but to awaken you. The West, the Western civilization, is becoming a minority, not because of invasion, not because of just spiritual collapse, but also because you have fewer children. You raise them in confusion, in a confused environment. You no longer know what it means to be a man or a woman, mother or a father. Your family units are not only small, but they're not solid. You have no solid grounds on which to raise your children. They don't revere you. They don't revere traditions. They don't revere anything. The only thing they revere is TikTok and YouTube. You know, you no longer trust nature or even your own biology. Your identity is under attack from outsiders. It's unraveling from within your culture, within your own society. Look at your schools. What are your children being taught? Who are you voting into your school boards? Who's writing your textbooks? What schools are you funding? What kind of world are you preparing for your children? You laugh at tradition, but your children cry out for structure in their self-destruction. You cancel hierarchy, but your children crave guidance without saying it. You replace the sacred with slogans, with virals, with memes, and you wonder why nothing feels solid anymore. We live now in a time where history is reduced to hashtags, where commentary matters more than conscience and conscience. But history, let me tell you this, my friend, is not passive. It is not content, okay? It is not a Netflix deal or a Netflix documentary. It's alive, it's breathing, and if you ignore it, it will return. This is why I speak, not to shame you, but to shake you, to awaken you, to tell you, wake up. Your civilization is not as indestructible as you think it is. And if you think that mocking your monarch, abandoning your sacred, erasing your roots, your ancestry, your heritage will make you stronger, you're wrong. I'll tell you that much. You are wrong. Today, more than ever, people are looking for identity. You are not being invaded. You are You are disintegrating yourself. And the worst part of it, you're laughing through the collapse. You're laughing at your own memes. You're laughing at your monarch. You create headlines, clickbaits. You spin narratives. You conspire narratives that don't exist. And for those that exist, you erase them to create a new one that suits your narrative, that suits your mood, your point of view. So like I said, the worst part is you're laughing through the collapse. So here I am, a descendant of a fallen kingdom, a voice from the ruins, across time, across history, across universe, from a parallel dimension, if you want to call it that way. But here I am, telling you, hold on to what you have. Hold on for where it stands. For what it means to have something so sacred. Because when it's gone, when it's vanished, it will not return. And then, and by then, you will become just like us. A people who carry their kingdom in memory, not in marble floors, not in law, not in scriptures, but in grief. And that is the heaviest inheritance of all. So, if you've made it this far with me, thank you, truly, honestly, humbly. You did not just listen to an opinion. You held a space for memory. You sat with perhaps discomfort. You heard a story that wasn't just mine, but one that echoes through countless of lives across centuries, across borders, across broken kingdoms and memories. Maybe you agree with me, maybe you don't, and that's okay. That's all right. But I hope just for one moment you saw the monarchy through a different set of eyes, a different lens, different scope, different perspective. Not as a relic, but and not even as a political pawn either, but as a living symbol, still standing, still alive, still breathing. And in times like this, when it's so easy to burn everything down, to feel powerful for a moment, I choose to protect the sacred. I choose memory over mockery, depth over noise, legacy over trend. If you're new here, again, welcome. And I hope you've enjoyed this moment of conversation. If you're, again, new, this is what we do here at ChronoRoyals. We explore where past meets present, where rituals meet relevance, where tradition dares to speak in a modern tongue. If this message today spoke to you, I'd love for you to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Not because I chase numbers, but because I believe some stories still deserve to be heard. Also, remember who you are, remember where you came from, and never let those who profit from chaos convince you that stillness is weakness. Because some of us, we're still mourning our kingdom and still standing guard at the gates of memory. So, until next time, stay rooted, stay regal, stay awake, as always, as ever, and as truthfully yours. This is Vespera, signing off.